you. Ladies and gentlemen, we continue with LeasePlan. And it will be a presentation around sustainability. What a surprise! Fleet operators and mobility service providers can utilize the energy ecosystem to reduce their carbon footprint and gain financial value. But how to do that and how to realize this win-win situation? That's up to Oscar Westerhoff, co-founder and sales director at PowerD, and Paul Turner, Director Multinational Clients at LeasePlan. Gentlemen, welcome. Welcome in Brussels.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. Great to see you, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, Oscar. The microphones should be activated.
They are.
Yeah, they are. Okay. Here is a clicker.
You're so kind. Thank you.
Okay. And the floor is yours.
Give it to you. So, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see some familiar faces in the room this afternoon. I promise we won't take a full 20 minutes of your time, so we'll catch up on the slot. But I think fair to say about 15, 16 minutes, and there'll be room for some Q&A and some questions afterwards. I'd like to introduce ourselves. So, Paul Turner, some of you know me, Director Multinational Clients at LeasePlan International, and I've brought along Oscar Westerhoff, who is the co-founder and sales director of a company called PowerD, and PowerD cooperates very closely with LeasePlan on a product which we call LeasePlan Energy. So over the last 2 years, and certainly recently, there's been a lot of talk. You see at COP26 today is the transport agenda topic for the COP26, and almost every topic that I've discussed with clients today, and also here in the audience, I know that one of the main topics has been around sustainability, EVs. You can't get away from it. So today we wanted to give a little bit of an insight into how that might look beyond the EV. So we do a lot of chit-chat about the EV. For me, that's becoming a little bit of an old school topic. It's very much here to stay, I believe. But then how sustainable and how green is the power that you're putting into your EV? And that's why I've invited Oscar along here today to give a little bit of an explanation of that. Next slide. So you can look up here, something that won't surprise you, but numbers are already quite interesting, I believe. So if you look here, that line says it all, doesn't it? It's going up. So I don't have to explain that in any more detail. That covers the EU, China, US. That's the sale of EVs globally. But what's even more interesting is, I believe, down there on the right, 15,000 new chargers are needed per week, charging points per week. Now, you start doing the math on that. That's significant, and I don't need to tell you we're well and truly behind on that goal. So, Oscar, you're going to give a little bit of an insight into how we can approach that in a smarter, more sustainable way, right?
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for the introduction. Hello, everyone. So what we would like to do in the next few minutes is talk about the future of the energy grid and the future of e-mobility. And this is a graphic I'd like to show because this is where we're working towards. The battery of the electric car will be able to decharge, so give energy back to the grid, to an office, to a home. In this picture, you will see that a car can charge on renewable energy during the day, when the sun is shining, when the wind blows, and not only transport yourself from A to B, but also basically transport the renewable energy that's in the car. So when it arrives home, you can decharge, so you can cook your meal with your battery, and you can charge again at a later moment. This is a real different scenario than what we have today with fuel cars, right? This is a decentralized system. So you as a fleet operator, as a company, you can create a whole different role for yourself in the mobility industry, in this ecosystem. You can get in control of your own energy. If we have a look at the car itself, we of course know that the internal combustion engine that you see here on the top made significant steps in reducing CO2. But we will know that in the end of the day, there will be gasoline in the car, and so we emit CO2. The electric car, on the other hand, has the possibility to store the renewable energy and to go towards zero emission. Of course, we can do with carbon offsetting programs, with green power purchasing agreements, we can match the demand of electric vehicles with the production of renewable production, but we need to do more. And that's where we will talk about in this session, about smart charging and vehicle to grid. If we look at the numbers, and this was one of the insights that led us to create a company that is solving the issue of charging on a mixture of energy. In this picture, we show that an electric vehicle, when normally charged, is still emitting CO2. When you charge, there is a gas or a coal plant needed to provide you with the energy. But if you know what energy goes in, and you have the technology to charge at moments when the renewable energy is abundant, you can go towards zero. So this is where we thought about, this is where we created a solution for, to deliver green energy to cars and to create a technology that's able to look at the energy markets when the production of renewable energy increases. And another problem, which I will show next, is the problem of grid congestion. You might realize that if we increase the share of renewable production, so we build solar parks, we build wind parks, and we increase the sales of electric vehicles, we have to match these two. So it's very hard to predict when a windmill or a solar park is producing. But on the other hand, we have an electric vehicle that can be charged every moment of the day. You can switch it on and off, and you can store that energy in the battery of the electric car. So you can either do two things. You can invest heavily in the infrastructure, so in the grid, to facilitate the demand for energy, not only for cars, but also for houses, for offices, etc. But we should be smarter than that, right? So we need technology to provide, to match the production of renewable energy with the consumption of it. And that's where we developed the technology, integrating with OEM data, integrating with charger connectivity, but also think about interactions with the grid operator. So we started in the Netherlands, and we have a grid connection with Alliander, one of the larger grid operators. And they can tell us when is the grid overloading, and we can act on that. And luckily, we also see that in the news, and there are policies being created. That's what we see in the UK. They propose a law to switch you off when you charge your electric vehicle. And those are the things we require from policymakers to make it attractive, to create a market for grid operators, electric vehicles, to charge at moments when there is more renewable energy and no peak demand. So how does this smart charging work? So what is the technology that we developed? We have algorithms that predict every day of our fleet, when is our fleet arriving home, when do they depart, how much energy is this fleet consuming. We buy 1 day ahead the energy for these vehicles. We also buy in the day itself, and we sell in the day itself when the CO2 intensity in the grid is lower. So we interact with the driver, and we charge at smarter moments. So we delay the charging at moments, and we can instantly react on weather changes, etc. So we have a connection with the charger, so we're compatible with every car, and we can switch the charger on and off in seconds. So that's what we do, and we have an application to interact with the driver itself. If you have certain OEMs, we are also connected to the telematica, so we know the state of charge, and then it's a fully automated process. For some cars, that's not yet available, so we need some interaction with the driver itself to know what is the state of charge when a car arrives at their home premise.
But then, Oscar, this is the lovely Q&A, and we've provided the Q&A for you, so you don't actually have to ask questions, which makes it much easier for you. So, Oscar, there's a lot of fleet managers, obviously, in the audience today, but what can they do right now to make, based on what you were just saying, to make their miles or their kilometers as green as possible?
So one of the first things, of course, is moving from fossil fuel cars to electric cars. That's the first step, and I know that's already a hard step for most of the companies here to make. The second thing is to think about what energy goes into the car. Where is it coming from? How can I report on it? Because putting an electric car on the road is a great first step, but it's not solving the issue. You need to, in my opinion, think further. Think about the energy that goes in, and secondly, think about the technologies that you might find around that can smart charge and so charge at more renewable moments.
And based on that, I can imagine data plays a big role in that, right? Can you maybe highlight or broaden some of that and explain a little bit more around data and how you use data?
Yeah. So, of course, you want some insights on the cost. So that's the basic thing you want. We can provide you with the cost, with the volumes you're absorbing in your fleet. But secondly, you also want more CO2 insights, and we have two solutions for that. So the first one is we can match your consumption with local production of wind and solar parks nearby. So we match the two, and you can get the guarantees of origin or the PPAs that we purchase. But more interestingly is we can give you a gain in the CO2 because your drivers are charging at more renewable moments. So we have a real impact on the adoption of renewable energy. And we can basically provide you with that data as well. Okay. Hey, and Paul, maybe one question to you.
I get a question as well.
You talk to a lot of fleet managers.
I do.
How can they push their policies? How can they push the sustainability agenda?
Yeah, well, I think it's not going to come as a surprise for me. And speaking to many of you today, it's about stakeholder management. And I think it starts with that. Now, that's easier said than done, of course. It's not that easy to walk into your board and say, hey, you're going to do everything green and we need to track everything. But I think, honestly, that's for me where it starts. Good stakeholder management, using the data and the benchmarking tools that we or some of our competitors have to make sure you're putting those numbers in front of key management and driving that agenda. For obvious reasons, it's more and more interesting than it was, Stephen, 5 years ago or 10 years ago when we were all standing here. Now there's much more impetus to drive that within your organizations. And I think there's much more openness to hear that. And I think going in with good data, making sure that data you can track is green and showing the sources of that through that whole story and telling that storyline in an effective way and management, I think is a good thing, Oscar.
Thanks. So if we look at what are the benefits of participating in smart charging, smart energy solutions for electric mobility is, of course, the people and planet part, being conscious of your environment and doing your best to create a better world tomorrow. But there is also a gain in terms of profit. You can report on your CO2 emissions. You can go towards zero, really. And the drivers itself get incentivized to use the smart charging application because in the end, they sometimes need to change their behavior or they need to fill in some preferences. So therefore, what I wanted to highlight is we started in the Netherlands 2 years ago, growing rapidly, especially in the Netherlands, but we're looking now abroad. So we are getting ready for the Belgium and the UK market, which will be rolled out next year, and afterwards we will expand to the other markets that are eligible for our services. It's sometimes hard to make it scalable because every market is different. The energy markets are different. The adoption of electric vehicles varies along these countries. So we should we're planning on that as well. This is our last slide, and I want to say that this is something we can't solve solely, so we have to do it together. We have to work with companies, with fleet operators, with the drivers. It's a decentralized system. You can get in control of the entire ecosystem here with the right partners. I'm looking forward to, for those of you who are interested to learn more of what we do, happy to meet you and discuss further.
Okay, thank you, Oscar. I think we have just a few minutes. Have we added to your time predicament that you had? No, we haven't. So we're good, is what you're saying. Okay, so then I think we have 2 minutes or 3 if anyone has any questions for Oscar. I'm not the expert, he is, but I can facilitate them. Any questions?
No, everything was clear.
No one's asleep yet. That's good. Lovely. Okay. Well, if you'd like to find out a little bit more, I think it's a fascinating subject. Really looking into the future. We're at the LeasePlan booth, so if you'd like to speak to Oscar about LeasePlan Energy and Power D, please come by and visit us. And for some of you in the audience, I know you're highly disappointed because I had promised to do a magic show this afternoon, and I decided last minute against it. So we'll make sure we get that in next time. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Oscar. Thank you for the presentation.